All right. Good night, all. So first, let's make sure that I got sound here. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So tonight we're going to continue with vocabulary. Also, if Miguel is watching, make sure you send me the course that you want on that. I'll probably talk to you later anyway. But check the last stream for what I'm talking about. All right, so wanted to continue on. What we didn't get to is error handling because I was doing horrible examples of mouse move and stuff like that. I still haven't figured that out. It's like I remember watching or I remember seeing something about it. So let me miss the yawn. Ooh, sorry. But yeah, so what's it called? I wanted to talk more about error handling tonight and how to handle errors and what we should do, or actually, not even what we should do. I'm going to be reading articles mostly because I'm going to be learning. I'm going to be learning live. Oh, okay. This is. I'm watching too much anime. I got Kaio or something like that. Volleyball anime. Pretty good. I like it so far. Oop, almost choked him with spit right there. All right, so control flow and error handling. So I found a couple articles. Today I was working on FAT. And, oh man, you know what? I forgot to start the stream off. I don't even think I started yesterday's stream off with this, sadly. That's pretty cool. With usually I start off with some art, little pieces. Oh. Look at what we got here. That's nice. It's Catwoman. Okay, I don't know about that one, but that's all right. Whoa, this is crazy 3D art. Looks almost real. I wouldn't doubt they probably like used a real person here and then just overlaid some stuff on it because this looks a little bit too exact. Hand looks kind of mannish and weird though. But you know, human beings are different. She could have man hands and a girl face. This is kind of crazy. This is like some Doja Cat shit right here. Tilty. This is like freaking Doja Cat, to be very honest. Like, it's just, I mean, the ass is kind of, the thighs are there, but there's no ass that comes in. I don't know. I like that one. This one's pretty cool. In fact, I might go ahead and download that one. Oh, that's like some Halo looking stuff. That looks like the Arbiter and Alien put together. Nice. Oh, Bloodborne. Okay. I remember that video game. I never played it, but that's a pretty cool game. Or a pretty cool look to it. I want to download that one too. I usually download these, make my background. Oh, it's Hulk. And Tilty. Get this one. How you gonna have all them thighs and no butt? I mean, it's just like, it's kind of there. Kinda. I'm butt shaming. This is what it is. Let's see what else they got. It's the Overwatch. Old Goku? Seriously? Yeah, I guess so. Tail all patched together. That's kind of different. Imagine old Goku if he wasn't like rebooted in GT or something. But GT never really happened, supposedly, or in the timeline, in terms of timeline. Oh, freaking Link. Overwatch Link. Okay. This is be kind of cool. Play the game Link by Aaron 3D Walker. Play the game as Link. Okay, that's pretty cool. All right. Got that out of the way there. Yeah, I've been forgetting the art lately. Alrighty, so I was working on that today. I finally got the modified list. I was working on it during the day, so now it went to night mode. I have it to where it's like after whatever your time zone you're in, after like 9, it'll switch to night mode. So that's something I added in that. Like I added that weeks ago, months ago actually. Now I've been working on this project for so long, especially this page, bro. Oh my god. That's just like a testament to like how much I'm not really coding outside of work, because I have my night job during the week, and it's damn near crime, the neglect I have, to where this is exactly why I have to stream on a regular basis, is because of stuff like this. But finally got this running, so it's like I click on this. Now I have it to where I can edit any one of these, and I fix some of this stuff with the Z index on this as well, to where you can see these, because before the Z index of the what is this thing called again? The Z index of the suite alerts modal here was like 1060. So I put in my own custom CSS for the container to where it's down to 0. So now everything should show over it. That'll work for now until it needs to be tweaked. But that was just all I had to do is a CSS, just a CSS change, and then load that into the custom CSS option or key in the suite alert configuration, which it isn't too hard. I mean, if you see it, you know what I'm talking about. But now I can deselect these things, and also I found there's like you can do a suite. There's a select, or this is select 2. In terms of the library that does all this. But with select 2, you can also do events. So it has like its own event. So like on unselect. But when I was doing this earlier on unselect, so say for instance, I add in test, right? And then boom, put that in there. So now it's there. But now it's like if I wanted to take it out before, if I would hit this X, it wouldn't take it out. It would actually leave it in there and just leave it unselected. And then, you know, I want it to pop off of the list, because then I'm going to go ahead and submit it. So now if I submit this, you should see test here, right? So what it does, it submits to the back end. Then this goes ahead and does another Axios call from the back end, and then gets the latest or the new list. So now I can go in here, click on this, and then choose test, pop that off. It actually pops it off the list. Kind of the only thing I don't like is that it's showing this here. I might take that out. I might take that out to where it doesn't show this. And you know, it's kind of funny because I did so much to try and have it show it, but now I don't want it to show. So I don't know. We'll see, because this messes up mobile a little bit. So like when you're working with mobile, the keyboard pops up because it's a field that you're entering stuff into. When you like take something off, the keyboard pops up. It's a field that you're entering something into, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I might have to do some type of like prevent default, or like see if there's anything in the library itself to where I can prevent that what's it called? Prevent that behavior. But yeah, so now, you know, now it's gone. I also added a cancel button here, so I can cancel out of that. It stays the same. It happens pretty fast, I guess, but you know, it just another thing would be nice to have is maybe something that says, you know, waiting or something like that. That's for just user experience. So if I do this remove button, take out test, but you see how that happens. I want to take that out. It's like, okay, I want to take that out. I don't need to see it. And then go ahead, hit submit. And then now you won't see that here. All right. So finally got that working. Also did a nice little bit of trickery here to where it does the right thing with the menus. I have it working for one level of menus. So it'll automatically add the proper class to highlight this in a darker gray, and then also expand it. A lot of parent.node calls and class.add or class list.add to get that working. So got that going. But now when you click on these, it actually looks at the modify account, or it looks at the path name here for the URL, or it looks at the URL, and then it says, okay, if the URL matches, or if the path name, which is just the / and anything after it, if the path name matches whatever the link is in this container here or this div, because I did a query selector, and with query selector, there's query selector and query selector all. With query selector, it gets the first match. Even if there's like 20 other matches, it only gives you the first match. But then you have query selector all, which gives you all of the matches, and then it gives you a node list, and you can treat that like an array. So when you have it like an array, then you can go ahead and iterate through it with a for loop or a for each loop. I don't want to do all that. I don't think I need to do all that. The problem I was having is with, like, if you go to dashboard and go to overview, the problem that I was having with this is that in the overview is just /. That's it, right? So that, along with its / as well up here for this link. So I changed the scope to where it only matched within this section here. So everything should match now. So that should be good. And there's a couple things like documentation where I probably have to make some type of like catch for this, maybe not, because really with these documentation pages, it's not like it's going to load a whole nother page, because essentially, and this is kind of like, you know, as I said, I had like an interview recently, and it's just like they use Vue.js, and it's like I see the power or the necessity for something like Vue.js, Vue, React, or Angular, where it doesn't reload the page, it just reloads and updates components. So I do want to get into Vue using the Venom stack, which is Vue, Express, Mongo, and Node. And I call it Venom, even though it's really known as the Mevin stack, MEVN, or MEVN, yeah, MEVN, Mevin. But I like Venom. Venom's a lot better. It's like a lot cooler. It's like, my stack is attacking your bitch ass. Compose yourself, Michael. All right, so right here, I have my overview, and with the overview, it only had the /, right? And then every time you click on this, it's going to load another page, right? Just like going to .html. Now, with something like Vue or anything else, it has its own templating engine, so I don't have to use handlebars. And it has its own, and this would be the time to change it because it's so early in the project to where I can add or make a big core change like adding Vue as opposed to using vanilla.js to do all of my stuff here. Instead of using handlebars and vanilla.js, I can use Vue, which actually has my routing and everything else like that, and still have Node as my backend API and go from there. So I'm thinking about it just so I can get like a quote unquote cleaner, nicer look. So yeah, it's something I'm looking at, and like it's like the V bind and V4 and all the other like Vue functions that you do and stuff like that. So I might do the simple stuff and then go from there. So I haven't needed a quote unquote framework or front end framework, but I mean, I guess it would be good. Not guess, but it definitely would be good to have that type of experience because everybody wants that. Everybody wants React, especially. That's like the big one by Facebook. And then, of course, Angular is what Google made and uses. But like Vue, I think is pretty nice in terms of, okay, let's just call it what it is. One, I saw it on a website, and two, I like the name when I rearrange it, and three, great documentation on Vue from what I've heard by like people like Brad Traversy, and then four, and this is probably should be one. It's probably the most important one. I like the color scheme. There you have it. Keeping it honest, I like the way how like the soft colors. I like the Vue logo. I like the way they actually promote themselves and put their content, they put their stuff out there. It's pretty sexy. Totally sexy. All right, cool. Just it is what it is, man. Sometimes, you know, we're visual creatures and we just go off of like you choose a whole stack or a whole front end library or framework just based off of like, you know, the color scheme. I'm just playing, but oh, sorry, I'm not playing about that, but I'm just like I'm being a little bit sarcastic. It actually has really good documentation from even what I've seen. And there's also a lot of videos out there where people are calling for it or using it and doing examples and doing courses and stuff like that. So I have a few view courses, so I'll start working with it. And I don't know about React. I guess, like a lot of people are asking for it, but I think it's just because that's kind of what is out there now. Alrighty. But yeah, so I got more pages to add to this, but taking my sweet ass time with it. But this would be nice if I can just actually get it to where it doesn't reload all these pieces so much. Like you see that flash of the screen, if it just does everything, has a little title bar at the top or that little progress bar at the top, but then really does all this stuff in here. And, it treats it like it's just a component and just reloads this section here. So you can have your true single page application, your spas. All right, cool. But yeah, so let's get into error handling. So just Googled a couple articles. One article that I really want to read is proper error handling in JavaScript. But let's read control flow. I usually always defer to the Mozilla Developer Network, but let's get some order here. All right, cool. So JavaScript errors. And I'm not gonna lie, I think this is inspired by something I talked about on live stream a while ago about having like your own set of error handling tools, if you will. Error handling tools or combinations or error handling combo functions that you would actually put in place. 2, based off of interviews that I've done, where one interview question was, how do you handle errors that come up from like a chain function or something like that? Like, how does that work? What do you do? And I just didn't code it properly, and I never thought about it. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty freaking bad. So I look at it and I was like, hey, listen, that's a weakness, vulnerability. Let's fix it. Let's look at these things. Let's do what we can to get better. And let's stream it. So I have some content on my page. And 2, y'all get better. So y'all hold me. Y'all got my back, right? Okay, cool. All right, so JavaScript errors, throw and try to catch. Throw and try to catch. Okay. The try statement lets you test a block of code for errors. The catch statement lets you handle the error. The throw statement lets you create custom errors. Kweku Isasi. Hey, man. Yeah, I appreciate some of the comments that you left on some of the older stuff that I had. And sorry, I just got to them today, man. But yeah, I appreciate I appreciate you, just showing up to the stream and talking and stuff like that. But like, yeah, doing what we need to. Programming. Yeah, I think what you're saying, so when you said interesting concept, I think you're just talking about like what I said in terms of like error handling and how errors can bubble up and stuff like that. And that was one thing that was put to me. It was like, how do you handle an error that bubbled up 3-4 functions ago in the chain? And I was just like, yeah, how do you handle that? Like it doesn't error out immediately. It doesn't give you that issue there. So how do you handle it? And that was just one thing. I was just like, why didn't I think of that? But sometimes you do these things and you don't have peers to review you, which is another weakness of mine, is that I haven't really worked with a team. Like I not rely on myself, but it's like I'm the only one that looks at this and like deals with it. I don't work on projects with other people, which I've thought about like reaching out and trying to help other people with stuff. And you got a couple comments, so let's read through those. I was just watching a stream that talked about programming for what can go wrong. Yeah. Oh, if you can type in the name of that stream, man, that would be great. Just so we can like give me the title, and then I'll put the link in the in the chat here too. Just so I can get that out to everybody so we can look at it. In fact, that reminds me, I need to put the link to this article. Usually what I do, because I haven't really seen you in one of these streams at least participate, but usually what I do is I put the link to whatever I'm looking at, I put that in the chat so you guys can always go back and then, you know, view it on the stream. So, okay, you're talking about error handling and looking to build an auto fertilization. Oh, fertigation. So an auto like fertilization system. First in Arduino, then iOS. When you say I guess you're talking about Apple iOS and actually doing an app. But even with Arduino, like the best thing you can do with that, I mean, I wouldn't even use an Arduino unless maybe you have a Raspberry Pi on the front end of that. And that's what we were talking about. I sent you a link about the Growbox project. So on that Growbox project, I think it was you. I want to say it was you. But on that Growbox project, man, the thing I see with the Arduino is that they're just dumb. So they take a lot of stuff from pin outputs and stuff like that, or pin signaling. I know they do have the Darter boards that you can put on them, and then you can expand their functionality. I would probably say just go with a Raspberry Pi and then have your Arduino as a subsystem. Now, with the Raspberry Pi, you can actually have a full version of Node.js on there and actually have a nice API. Then you can control that through your app, you know, a web-based app. One thing I like to do is like when I'm building all my different projects and stuff, like if I inspect on this and then choose the different modes, you can see that this is mobile ready in terms of like the look, right? So I can go here, I can do whatever I need to here, loads a new page, does everything. So I can see that this page here is mobile ready. And when it's mobile ready like that, it makes it a lot easier to control it from your phone as opposed to having an Android iOS app or Android or iOS app that you have to go through the App Store and deal with all that BS. You have a little bit more flexibility. With working with an actual just web, a web control panel or something like that. But yeah, okay. I'm like talking too much. Let me catch up here. LOL, yeah, they are. Okay, I was going basic and then graduate to a more robust OS. Man, screw that, man. Don't wait. Go straight to a Raspberry Pi. Let's see here. The Growbox project. This is my attempt to do something with container farms. And with the Growbox project, let's take that out. Get rid of this and get rid of this comment. But with the Growbox project, what I do here, to look a little bit different than that, I think. Oh no, okay, it doesn't. So with the Growbox project here, one of the things I have, this is a Raspberry Pi right here. LOL, okay. Yeah, bro. Sometimes I'm like that, man. So I apologize. I was be like, nah, jump in, man. Jump into the lion's den. It is what it is. Get your leg bitten off. You'll learn a great lesson. So, but yeah, man, jump into that, bro. And you know, you could do a little bit more with that. But I just wouldn't say not move away from the Arduino. But when you're talking about like iOS and working with it, sometimes it's such a higher barrier to entry to work with systems like that if you don't have something a little bit more robust on top of it. Now, you can, you know, do all that. You can do things with it, but it's a board where you're going to have to do all types of work to put daughter boards on it that'll have network connectivity, USB connectivity, so on and so forth. If you can get with a Raspberry Pi, which has, I guess you would say like a full robust OS, but that OS has all the different binaries that are made for the ARM processor or that are compiled for the ARM processor and then allow you to do all these different things. Like in this Raspberry Pi, like this is a pretty big box. Actually, give me a sec. So I've kept on saying, like in the past, getting back into this Growbox project. So this is the environmental control system. This is the environmental control system for it. And there we go. So Growbox, and then this is like, you know, I've been working on this since 2019. I've been working on, though this model has been since 2019. I had previous models previous versions of it and everything else like that. Has a nice fan on it. So this is the one that's pictured on the website. Let me open this up. A little bit of show and tell here. But with this, you can see the different pieces. Here we go. All right. So with this, you can see the different pieces that are in here. I have an actual battery pack. I was trying to have like dual power to where it, almost like a UPS, if you will. I was trying to add like a camera to it. But I have this one add-on, which is, I forgot what this is called, but you can find this on Amazon. But what it does, it just allows you to get to the pins a little bit easier. And then you can start like, binding cables together and stuff like that. Then I have what I call my tower of power here. And this right here, it just takes in your regular power from the wall. Takes in your regular power from the wall. And then I can control all the different relays here from the Raspberry Pi itself. So, and then I also have this here, and this right here is a little bit dangerous. Maybe I want to have a cover or a fuse or box or something like that instead. But this controls the fan. Oh, sorry, the fan. I'm trying to do this while looking at the camera. So the fan, and then there's another power brick where I use this to control like valves. So like, you were talking about a fertigation system. So I've never heard of a fertigation system. So I guess that's like a fertilizer irrigation system. I guess that's like a combination of the two. But that's probably just me, right? But what's it called? Oh, in Ghana. Okay. So yeah, like you have this system here. Hey man, maybe we can connect on it and we could talk about it and like do some combo coding projects or something like that. I definitely really would like that, especially if I get another job or something like that that pays a little bit higher and I don't have to work two jobs. Oh, okay. So yeah, the fertigation system is a Oh, okay. I was thinking about that. Like this right here, I wanted to have this hooked up to a bucket, and then I have a whole bunch of different pigtails here that can hook up to flow sensors and stuff. So these are actually connected to some pins here on the Raspberry Pi to where I can actually monitor the flow of water, and then that can actually handle my irrigation system. Let's go back to this here, and we have this is kind of what got a portion of what you were talking about is what's in this bucket here. So I have multiple sensors. I have a lower water sensor, a mid water sensor, and then I have another float sensor up here. But this was like my smart bucket, and this would hold all of the irrigation water and stuff like that, or the fertilized water. So all the nutrients would go into here, mixed with regular tap water, or get filtered out, or whatever have you. Either put chlorine or put some other stuff, and do all types of stuff, and then actually have a small little pump in there as well that would, this right here, this like nipple here at the top would take in the actual water, and then this would actually push the water out. So I had a whole bunch of stuff going on with it, man, and definitely really need to get back on it. And this is how the box looks, like really cleaned out, or not much in it, I should say. Miguel, as always, brother, man, put your information, your streaming information in the chat, bro. All right. Let's see here. All right. Let's put my lovely face back up on here. Oh, too much lovely face. There we go. All right, so let's go through this. Yeah, dope stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff, man. I like this. This is always cool. Yeah, I got the link, and we'll dive in deep. Yeah, and you can check out the GitHub. It's that project. The Growbox stem should be at should be in the treestarsystems GitHub. But if you look on the Growbox project and you go to Almanac, the Almanac is where I have. It's just a name for documentation. I thought it was pretty cool. But this is where I have all my documentation on the project and stuff like that. So you have like grow box petal and stuff like that, seed and root. And then one thing I did here is, purchase list. So talking to what you were talking about, Kweku, is, putting this over in like places like on the continent of Africa or places, third world countries, even. No offense. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that in the wrong way, but anyways, but, putting in third world countries, high poverty areas, even like in countries in like Jamaica, especially in the country area, there's not much money out there, even in rural parts of America as well. But taking shipping containers, and you could ship an entire farm and have environmental controls and everything be open source. Or you can, if you have some type of Alibaba, Amazon connection or whatever, you can get all these parts sourced from Amazon and do whatever you need to. So that was kind of the big thing for me. Like you said, many opportunities for us, just auto farming tomatoes in Ghana. Definitely, bro. And that's kind of like the point of all this. Can you control it remotely? Yes, you can actually control this remotely with the Growbox stem. The Growbox stem is made to actually have an API on there, or a Node.js based API, to where you can actually control everything. I never worked out the exact control, but the code is on GitHub, to where you can actually do like a post or something like that to the API itself with your proper key. And then once you have that key and you have that connection, then you can actually send commands to it and do whatever you need to. But again, I never finished all the controls. Now I'd probably go back and look at it and almost not start from scratch, but like I would change a lot of things in that. All right. I have a few Wi-Fi switches that do some functions automatically and remotely. Okay. Yeah. I guess you were talking, I'm catching up on the comments, but in terms of like, all the different things that you can actually do with these with the technologies that are out there, in terms of like controlling everything, as long as you have that type of connectivity, Wi-Fi, cellular, what have you, and then you can have a remote control panel or something like that that's hosted on a fast connection, then it can send stuff via an API, because API calls don't really need much in terms of actual data. So that's an important thing to actually understand, is that with an API call, that the data that's transferred is very small. And even if it's an API call over SSL, still very small, very fast. And then all you have to do is have your maybe your web control panel on something, a faster medium, and then it just makes API calls to the remote stations. And you can have a ton of remote stations all controlled within that. Yeah. So, but functionality is limited. So I think that when you're talking about functionality being limited, you're talking about like with the Arduino, and yeah, that definitely is going to be limited in Arduino. All right, let's get back to it here. But yeah, that's cool. Thank you guys, or thank you for inspiring me to show that, man, because I haven't looked at that, and that was like that's a really cool project, and I think that could be huge. All right, so JavaScript errors, throw and try to catch. What's it called? Throw statement. A throw statement lets you create custom errors. So with the throw statement, I can create custom errors. Now I can still do this with instead of like, maybe I get an error, but then I throw my own error is what it's saying. So instead of throwing whatever the system error is, I can throw, hey, I got an error. Throw, this shit fucked up, bro. Instead of like throwing an actual error, or throwing an error that's supplied from another subsystem or something like that, maybe I throw 0, and then that 0, I have an if statement that looks at it and says, oh, okay, if 0, then go ahead and do this. Or sorry, if 1, I should say, throw 1. Because if you exit 0, exit from a process with the number 0, then it means it exited without errors. If you exit with 1, it means it exited with errors. And then there's a whole bunch of different error numbers that you can actually throw that mean different things. But usually people focus on 0 and 1. I think it goes up to like 4 or 5, probably more than that. But then you can also with throw, you can throw as many, you can throw whatever you want. You can throw a string, you can throw a number, however you want on that. The finally statement lets you execute code after try and catch regardless of the result. So that's pretty cool. So something like that, just conceptualizing and thinking about it in my head here. I would have a dot finally, maybe after every time something gets sent, maybe console log, this process has been completed. Or send an email out no matter what, whether it fails or not, send an email out. And the dot finally would be good because it's like, okay, whether it actually works or doesn't, then I can send an email saying, hey, this process occurred. This was the result, or dot finally. Usually I would do something like that in a dot then, but then it's like, okay, what if it errors out? Then I would have to actually have that in my catch block or my dot catch. So something like a finally would be good, where you can send it whether it executes successfully or executes with an error. All right, so errors will happen. When executing JavaScript code, different errors can occur. Errors can be coding errors made by the programmer, errors due to wrong input, and other unforeseeable things. And I was thinking about this, right? Like, I was thinking about the error handling combo, the error handling tool set. Let's bring that up. Okay. So the error handling tool set here, it's like, okay, all my errors here. This is my block of code that I actually write. So you have your code and then you have your errors, but then you have your error handling tools in like, whatever the combo is, right? So like you could say error handling combo 1, and then along with error handling combo 1, you can define it as this is combo 1 here, right? In that, you can send email error, send email warning of an error with the error string, and that'll be like its own function. Or you can do a Splunk API call. So if you have something like Splunk or some other type of monitoring tool or logging system, then you could pass that error string via an API call or some other type of call. You can even do like, you don't even have to always do like a web-based call. You can send it via SSH and write to a file. You can do whatever the hell you want, really. You could even write a file to your file system and then go from there. So, or you can just send an email, even as I said earlier here. But nowadays, you're going to be doing API calls. It's a lot cleaner, faster, and a little bit more versatile as well, because now I can make an API call and then I can have a list of, endpoints that I can make an API call to. And then if one endpoint is down, then I can send it to another one. So I don't have to do it locally on a server. I can have it go out to multiple places, or I can have it actually sent to a messaging queue or something like that, like Rabbit MPQ. I think it was like Rabbit MPQ or MQ or something like that, Rabbit MQ. And with that messaging queue, I can actually take it and say, okay, this message or this error is in this queue. And then I can have something that goes to that queue or iterates through that queue and processes that request, and then, does whatever it needs to, sends a phone call out to somebody, or, sends this information over here, does sends a beeper code or something like that. I don't know, anything, right? So in this case right here, I can, what's it called? Send error, as I said. So text error, HTML string. This is just using the node mailer library. The node mailer module in Node.js. And then I can actually send out emails and then go from here, like console log error sent. And this would be my error handling combo 1. I can have multiple combos. I can call multiple combos to do multiple things, to inform multiple systems, depending on the level of severity of the error, depending on what's read here. And I can have all that handled in my error handling tools. And it can determine, say, hey, listen, if the error string that I get is this, then do this, then do this, then do this. And then, extend it from there. So, I mean, this is like, I was thinking about this, and then, I had to deal with that the other day. I was like, oh, crap. Or I had to deal with that as a question. All right, so in this example, we misspelled alert and add alert to deliberately produce an error. So right here, welcome guest, catch error, document, error.message. So in this case, they automatically, or they sent something, or they wrote it wrong or improperly here for add alert. And now that should catch an error and send something out. So inner HTML demo. So in this case, we can see here, if I run this, add alert is not defined. And it gives me that error message that's passed here. And it's a little bit cleaner in terms of like, okay, how it's giving you that error message, because there's so much stuff that it does. It almost does a bit of a stack trace when an error actually occurs. like when a file is not found or something like that. It gives you a lot of information, and then sometimes you just really want just the error. So with a try catch block, you can actually get a better experience when dealing with major errors in your code if you do a try catch. All right, so JavaScript try catch. The try statement allows you to handle allows you to define a block of code to be tested for errors while it is being executed. Oh, Miguel, you got to send me the course that you want, by the way. And then, sorry, cool. The catch statement allows you to define a block of code to be executed if an error occurs in the try block. Simple as that. I mean, really, you try this code. If it doesn't work, send the error to me. Or if it doesn't work, then do this code for another error. I was just checking if Miguel actually sent that to me, and I didn't even notice. All right. So the JavaScript statements try and catch come in pairs. All right. JavaScript throw errors. When an error occurs, JavaScript will normally stop and generate an error message. The technical term for this is JavaScript will throw an exception, throw an error. JavaScript will actually create an error object with two properties, name and message. Okay, cool. So, I mean, I usually like to do things in JSON objects. Sometimes you can do stuff in arrays, which are a little bit simpler. Go from there. Yeah, Miguel, send me the go to udemy.com, send me the course that you want, and then I'll have to like gift you the course. And that's how I have to do it, because they don't have like actual gift cards or anything like that. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, watch the last stream. All right, cool. The throw statement. The throw statement allows you to create a custom error. Technically, you can throw an exception, throw an error. The exception can be a JavaScript string, a number, a Boolean, or an object. Okay, that's cool. So I can say throw too big, throw text, throw 500, throw a number. So like throw 500 errors, or like resource not found or something like, or not, that's 404. Server-side errors or something like that is usually 500 error code if it's using like the HTML error codes here. If you use throw together with a try catch, you can control program flow and generate custom error messages. So this would be nice. You can actually generate custom error messages and actually do custom things with it, of course, right? It's like, oh, okay, throw this error, and then if it's this error, then do this. If statements, blah, 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 and do all types of crazy stuff with it. So input validation example. This example examines input. If value is wrong, an exception error, parentheses error, is thrown. The exception error is caught by the catch statement, and a custom error message is displayed. Okay, let's look at this. Oh, okay. All right. So essentially what it's saying here, you have your function is defined, you have your const, which is a message here, or const message. Okay, that's where your message will go. All right. And then message.inner HTML. That could be a const, and then you can actually change it. Weird. I mean, I know it's like a sub item of it, but I shouldn't. Oh, no, I'm not changing this. Okay, I'd have to test that, because as I know it, you really can't change a message, or you really can't change a const. It's a variable, and you're not really changing this variable, but you're changing a subset of the element within that variable, or that's addressed by that variable. So you're addressing document.element by ID. It gets that element, and now you're saying, hey, that element inner HTML. So I'm not really changing message. I'm just changing the inner HTML of that element on the page. But I don't know. I just wouldn't use a const for that, because it's not normal to me. Anyways. All right, cool. All right, so let x equals document element by ID demo.value. All right, cool. So you can get the value of that. So I mean, x could be like an input or something like that, or what have you. But yeah, if it's that value, most likely it's an input field. And the throw, it's excuse me, and then you do a then you're gonna do a try catch block. Within your try block, if x equals nothing, so that's, it'll say throw empty. So you can have your if guarding statements here if you want it here. So you don't have to do a full if statement. You can just do like if your conditional and then whatever you want to be done after that. So there's no like, it's like, oh, if empty, and this is a quote unquote cleaner way instead of doing like if else blocks or if and then else if, or even faster, or sorry, even less text than doing a even less text than doing what do they call those things again? Not the if else, but the switch or a case block of code. So try is not a number. So is NaN, so not a number, X. So it's going to evaluate that. And then if it is not a number, which will evaluate to true. So it doesn't, yeah. So if you wanted to do like if you want to do the inverse of this or a negated version of this, you just put the exclamation point in front of it. So like if it actually was a number, then go from there. Throw not a number, X equals number X. All right, so it should have got, so what this does with these guard statements here, it goes through these, and by doing a throw, it's going to do almost like a return, right? Or is going to return and exit the actual function. So it wouldn't even get to this point. But if it passes these checks, then it says X equals number X. So this will convert it to an actual number. So even if it's a string, which is what you're going to get from the input box, the input field, you're going to, by doing this, it'll convert it to a true number instead of a number, a quoted number, meaning a number in double quotes, single quotes. If it's a number in double quotes or single quotes, even though to you, human eyes, it would look like a number, it's actually to the language, it's a string. Now, what Java does or JavaScript does in the back end or in the code itself, it actually does some work to that string and says, oh, okay, is it an alphanumeric string? If it's an alphanumeric string, then it's definitely not a number and I can't treat it as such. But I can do, the string of 5 or quoted 5 plus unquoted 5 equals 10, and it'll actually work in some cases or in most cases, right? But that's just JavaScript doing some stuff in the background and doing some typing and stuff like that. Or variable typing, like whatever, if it's a type number, type object, type Boolean, stuff like that. But if that's why, like when you have these comparisons here, equal, so that's just an equal. Like if X itself was a quoted 5 or double quoted 5, and then it equaled, like a 5 like this, an unquoted 5, it would actually be equal. But if I do a triple equal, then it has to equal the same type as well. And if it doesn't do that same type, then it would throw an error here. But start looking at your operators. So, modulus, not equal, equal, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, things like that. So in this case, if X is less than 5, throw too low. If X is greater than 10, throw too high. So essentially that means if it's less than 5, so that means up to 4.9 or 4.99999, whatever, right? Then it's going to throw too low. So 5 up to 9.99999. So I can say in between 5.0 and 9.9999, it will actually be okay. This will not throw an error. And we'll try this in a second just to make sure, because sometimes you have to look at code and actually think about it in your head and be like, oh, okay, well, this is what that means. And like, this is kind of like in a sense, you're interpreting / compiling it in your head. So that's kind of like, once you've learned something or once you've coded for a while, you'll start to see it and you can start looking at it. And it's kind of like you having the knack and the feel for that. All right. So catch error. All right. Because I threw my own custom errors here. And then message.enter HTML. Input is, and you can use a template literal so you can combine all this, but this is just string concatenation and go from there. All right, so try it yourself. So in this case, I should be able to put 9.99999 and test input. This will not throw an error. All right, but if I put in 10, oh wait, hold on. Ah, okay, so I was wrong. So it will actually do it up to number 10. So that'll work. So if it's greater than 10, okay, so not 0.99999, it'll get up to 10, but I can't do 10.00001. That's going to be too high. Okay, so hey, compilation error right there, right? And then less than 5. So let's do 5. And then we can do 5 will be fine, but 4.9 is too low, right? And then, yeah, I can do 5 all the way to 10. Yeah, in between 5 and 10. And you can consolidate this too if you wanted to. Or actually, no, not really. You can almost consolidate this too, if you wanted to, and like do like out of range or something like that. So like for instance, I might do something like if x is less than 5 and x is greater than, x is less than 5 and x is greater than, say, like 10.0. 10. No, I could do it like this. And greater than 20. Throw keyword. And then I can throw out of range. Yeah. Out of range. Run. It's empty. 4.9 is too low. 10.01 is too high. Oh, sorry. I did and, so it has to do both conditions, or it has to match both conditions. Yeah, and say like out of range. And that's kind of how I'd probably handle it, unless, for some reason, like you don't need this, right? Because the only reason, again, it's nitpicking. Like that's not a big deal. It's not going to be like, I guess, less performant unless you're doing like a ton of if statements or something like that. But after a while, you just don't care about certain numbers, or you don't care about certain values that come out of this. Like, why would I care about it if it is, if I only want between 5 and 10, or between 5.0 and 10.0? If I only want those numbers, I don't care about any other numbers. So why would I actually go ahead and put in there and say, okay, put in this number? Like, it doesn't matter. Just throw out of range and that's it. Like, it doesn't, like, you don't really care about it after that. And the reason why you do stuff like that is because it's just inefficient to a certain extent. And this is kind of just refactoring code. Like what I just did was an example of refactoring code, like looking at your code and saying, hey, this worked. Okay. And it worked well. It did what it had to do. But let's go ahead and try and minimize, consolidate certain things, maybe even optimize our code a little bit to where we don't have to worry about these things. Like, do I need to care about this? Do I need to care about that? Case in point, Oh. Case in point, I was working on FAT and working on just code from my day job and trying to make it better by testing it on my own personal projects. And what I actually did or found, server index.js, I was trying to make this more efficient in terms of like the mongoose connect strings and all that. Oh, do I have it in multiple places? Yeah, okay, cool. I did make the changes here. Perfect. All right. So I was trying to say like, if Mongoose connection can do this, like I was trying to change, I was trying to ensure the reliability of the service by saying, okay, if Mongoose is not available or you can't connect to Mongoose or the Mongoose process actually is not running, then go ahead and start the Mongoose process. But then I looked at it and I was just like, okay, I'm doing all these checks, but I don't even really need to do the check. Like just what I started to see, and this comes in, or your experience with a certain set of routines or a certain set of procedures, and the way a binary or a way not a binary, but the behavior of a program and its whole startup process. Once you start to understand the workings, like once you understand how it works, you'll see that I didn't need to check for Mongoose if it was running or not. In fact, let's do this here. Fact. Wow, June 14th was the last time I put something in this thing. Oh, perfect. It's the last time I updated, but I have updated since then. Yeah, wow. Oof. All right, so I'm going to be doing a pretty big update to this here in a second. I'll do it after the stream. Oh, I don't want that. I want this. So if I look at the way this is done, so here we go. So here I'm checking if MongoDB is running. But the thing about MongoDB is if it's not running, then just start it. And I was worried, is like, well, if it is running, what will happen? Like, just to make sure I don't rerun it. Well, if it is running, then it'll just fail because it'll say, hey, listen, something's already running at that what's it called? That port, or that process is already running. You don't need to do anything else. So I didn't really need to check or anything like that. All I needed to do was just run it. And if it fails, it fails. The reason why I understood that or figured that out is because I was like, I'm getting all these errors for all the other processes in the cluster. So with PM2, of course, I used the PM2. I used the cluster option, which uses the built-in Node.js clustering option. So essentially, it'll run Node.js or JavaScript itself is or JavaScript engines or single-threaded in nature. So they don't run on multiple threads or anything like that. So you can use clustering to where I can run a Node.js or a replica of my app on every processor. I've explained this multiple times, but I always like to reiterate it. I can run one of those threads per processor, right? So what it was actually doing, it would already do this, and I just never really realized it or never really cared about it. So if I would start something, if I would start the MongoDB process again, I'm gonna do it here. But if I would start the MongoDB process again, it would run that check to see if it was running. And then if it was running, then it wouldn't do it, right? And like, that's kind of cool if you had like multiple processes. And I'm also making an assumption here that the primary process will always run and there'll be no problems with it, or it'll always be running and it won't have any issues. But what happens is it kept on trying to start MongoDB. So for instance, I have 4 core processors or 4 virtual processors on this VM. It would actually run it 4 different times to try and start it up. And it's just like, okay, well, you know, it runs once. And then after that, anything else after that, it's just going to fail. We know this is going to happen because that's just how it works. And it doesn't cause any type of issues with the database on the back end. It doesn't corrupt anything. And it doesn't cause any errors in terms of writing information or anything else like that. Right. So it's just like, that doesn't really matter. So if I run it multiple times. So if that's the case, then 1, just only run it on the primary process or instance type primary. That's the first thing. And then 2, it doesn't really matter if it is already started. Like for instance, I restart this app. If MongoDB hasn't shut down properly, then that's the only problem I have. But I have something in place to make sure it shuts down before it exits the process and restarts the other ones. Excuse me. And then also the way in which mongoose.connect works, which is we're using the mongoose module, it'll actually wait and it'll do multiple connection attempts before it errors out. So that's kind of like, you know, knowing what your app does and how it works, and then knowing a little bit more about it. So it's just like when you're seeing stuff like that, that's kind of like, okay, how you refine your process, refactor your code, change up how everything works on your app to quote unquote make it better, optimize it, and certain things you worry about and certain things you don't. Like I don't need to do all these different if statements and checks, and I don't have to go through all this stuff. It was a good exercise, if you will, but and I know how to like deal with it in the future, but I really didn't need to do it. And then after that, what I noticed is the start app was only running for the primary process. So I took it outside of that to where it can actually start the app. And then, of course, I have an event listener down here, which is where on this event listener, if process instance type is primary, then go ahead and shut down like on process sig init, like a control C or a killing of the process. If I save a file and PM2 restarts the different apps. It deals with that. And then it'll do a shutdown. If error console log, there's an error with the system, else console log shutting down MongoDB, and then process.exit. I think I went over this on stream, but there's like process.exit code, which is supposed to be a little bit safer. But really, I haven't seen anything like this. Actually, process.exit exits out even faster and restarts the process quicker. Otherwise, it will hang and stop for a while, and I'm not exactly sure why that actually happens. And then you just have process.exit. And the reason why this is an else is if it's not primary, then just exit the process. And this is for all my replica processes. So it always does a process.exit. The only difference here on why I don't have it just at the end, you know, and have it encased in an else is because I have process. I want to get the if it exited improperly previously or anything like that. So exit code of 1 or 0. And I use a ternary operator to track that. But you can see where I got rid of this whole if statement, checking if Mongo is running, if error, whatever. It just does child process exec, and I just cut it down to this. And then move some stuff around. I got some stuff out of there. So start app works properly to where it should start the app and do whatever it needs to, and runs app specific. I want to say app specific code. It always runs that. So yeah, there we go. That's an improvement, and that has to deal with what I was talking about with error handling, or understanding your process and dealing with error handling here, or refactoring your code and seeing what's necessary, what's not necessary in terms of what we're doing here with this try catch block. So you can see that I consolidated this to like, hey, listen, I don't care about it, out of range, it doesn't matter. And now from 2 lines, I'm consolidated it to 1, you know, so go from there. And this, I don't know, there's definitely another way you can write this, but there could be a better way of writing it. And it's just like, you know, yeah, there's so many different ways you can do that. All right. So let's go to this article here. Actually, let's go back. Okay, cool. Let's look at this first. The code above is just an example. Modern browsers will often use a combination of JavaScript and built-in HTML validation using predefined validation values defined in HTML attributes. So I could do like a min-max. Okay. Step equals 1. I've never done a step though. Never done that. But that's like for an input field. So you can step it up 1, I guess. Okay. Type number. Oh, okay. Yeah. You could like, so when you do like if it's like a type number, then that input field will show so if I do run here, yeah, see, it'll show these boxes here if it's a type number, and it'll max out at 10. So you can see how you can just clean your user input to where it doesn't have that issue. So they can't enter in 4.9, even if they wanted to. They're constrained by this here. I do some work tomorrow on my day job's coding code base. All right, cool. All right, so every programmer out there wants to write code that works. In the long run, chances of your program running as expected reduce due to one thing: errors. Errors in JavaScript could get complex at certain times, and when that happens, programmers have no one to blame but themselves or the language itself. It would be great if we all knew how to detect these errors, expose them, and prevent them from happening again. One thing to note, though, this article assumes some knowledge in JavaScript. If you're looking for enhance your skills, why not sign up? Okay. All right, cool. Features such as the stack property as well. When you are done, you won't be scared of frequently implementing features such as the stack property as well as handling errors. So I guess the stack property is like call stack property. Huh. Oh, okay. So you can do a stack trace. Yeah. And in like Linux, if you're running something, you can do what they call a strace. So an S trace or a stack trace. And you can run a program and it'll actually do the whole stack trace for you and everything, and print out some other information about what that process did and what files it touched, what it did to, how it executed, and all types of other stuff. Excuse me. Okay, so I'll skim through this and kind of go through a couple things and explain it as I go along from my level of understanding and how I'm actually ingesting some of this. So usually JavaScript errors can be divided into two categories: actual problems and programmer mistakes. Most likely programmer mistakes. All right. Actual problems are events that are not preventable by the programmer. For example, a program asking a user to enter a name and it gets back an empty string. Okay, but you can do stuff around that. Like you can do if statements, guards, case statements, stuff like that to get around that. Table of contents, programmer mistakes are errors made by the programmer when writing programs. This can be further subdivided. Syntax errors. Okay, these are the most basic kind of errors, also known as parsing errors. They occur at compilation time in traditional programming languages and interpretation time in JavaScript. Remember, JavaScript is both interpreted and compiled, so it's a hybrid language in that respect. And it's compiled using what they call a JIT compiler, or a compiler or a class of compilers called JIT compilers. Cartoon is that? Okay. Sorry, got this is like I was getting distracted by this before. Check out the code below. So x equals 2, y equals 2, console log x by y. What's it called? Console.log. Oh, okay. So yeah, the syntax error in here would be this parentheses or missing parentheses. I got to look at it again. I didn't even read this, but in the last example, the above the last line of code will cause a syntax error because it's missing a closing parentheses. Okay, runtime errors, also known as exceptions. These kind of errors occur when the program is executed, usually when it has been compiled or interpreted. Consider the code below or code block below. Okay. Window features, open pop-up. All right. The function above will cause a runtime error because although the syntax is correct at runtime, at runtime, it is trying to call a method open object that doesn't exist. All right, so let's look at this. Feature, open pop-up, window object, features, window object, function, open pop-up, string window features. Yeah, open object doesn't exist. Okay, so I mean, it's not like it's something like open object is not here or anything like that. But maybe window.open object is not valid in some respect. It's the only thing I can think of because I've never heard of open object before. There's a lot of things I haven't heard of, so that shouldn't be like a surprise or anything like that, or anything wrong with the example. Oh, by the way, let's copy and paste the link for this in there. Koch is a pretty good website. I don't use it much, but I've seen it quite a few times in terms of like examples and stuff like that. And you can do, you can get, there's like courses that some of these people sell on here. The most complex of all three errors, logical errors, logical errors occur when you make a mistake or flaw in the logic that controls your program's script. This mistake causes the program to alter expected results or exhibit unexpected behavior. And that's kind of like the if statement that I wrote earlier, where I did and as opposed to or, because then it would have to logically, it would have to match both cases, and it can't. Like it can't be lower than 5 and higher than 10. Like that's just going to be logically incorrect, or logically or not feasible, or not possible. It can't be both, right? Like it has to be one or the other in terms of the way the logic is written. So if that's the case, then it'll never match that condition, and it won't throw that error, rightfully so. But if I do an or, then it has the option of saying, oh, okay, if this works, all right, cool. It doesn't work, go on to this one. Oh, it does work, throw error. Or it does have a problem, or it doesn't match, or whatever, throw error. Okay. Function, power, base, exponent, result, var, count, count less than exponent, count plus plus. So this is a for loop. Count less than exponent. So if you throw something, what if somebody tries to call power and then it throws it, it gives it a string? Oh, okay. Well, that's obviously a programmer mistake. What about the power of 5? Okay. A quick look at this function's logic will tell you that it can't handle fractional exponents, but by the law of mathematics, raising a power to the number of half power is possible. JavaScript does this via the math.pow function. In such situations where it's not entirely clear what kind of input a function accepts, explicitly stating the kind of arguments that are acceptable in the comment or input validation becomes a good idea. Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is pretty much saying like, okay, takes object, like you write a nice little comment at the top that says take object, or check to make sure that it's a whole number, or even doing something as simple as like rounding it up automatically, and then letting the user know, hey, listen, your number is rounded up because it's going to fuck my stuff up. You can say some stuff like that. All right, it's cool. So best practices for handling errors. All right, one common criticism of JavaScript is the way errors are handled through callbacks. Check out the pattern in which the code below is written. My function equals, so we're doing a bit of an if. Well, this is a function. Yeah, this is a function expression, but it's not an iffy. It's not immediately invoked. But my function equals a function. Okay. Oh, that's one way of writing it. I don't usually do that. Like the other way of writing this would be function and then my funct. But in this case, we're going to assign a function to a variable. So essentially, this is an anonymous function that's assigned to a variable. Do something, funct, if error, return CB error. So you're going to pass in CB will be a callback. Callback is not defined anywhere in here. All right, do something else, function error. So if return CB error, and then so if error, return CB error. All right, so we don't have an error. Then do something else. Error B. If error, return CB error, return CB null, AB. Okay. So if error, return the callback again. Otherwise, just return callback null, and then AB. What's it called? Yeah, return CB. CB is taking two parameters. One parameter is null, meaning that it's not an error. And then the next parameter is the actual an array. All right, cool. What's good about this kind of pattern? It forces programmers to handle errors. As the person writing the code, you always want to make sure you know when an operation can fail, especially if it's asynchronous operation. What's bad about this kind of pattern? It seems like a lazy way of writing code. Asides that, what? I've never heard of sides. So besides that, if part of the code fails, the entire operation will fail. Certain exceptions to this are retry logic, reverting changes, and advanced error reporting. So this is kind of like what I was talking about, the error handling tools. Also talking about the basic try-catch blocks. Okay, fortunately, there are quite a number of ways and methods to deal with errors and exceptions. Let's check out the methods and how they can be applied to our code. Okay, so sorry, gotta take a bit of a break. My mouth is super dry. I don't want to get up as much as I did last time in the last stream, but kind of already got up once, so yeah, guess it won't be a big deal. I need to bring water out here when I'm doing streams. Okay, let's power through this. So this will be a last article, and then I'm going to retire to watching some cartoons. And tomorrow, I got to do some work on my for some code on my day job. All right, so try-catch finally. The try-catch finally statement marks a block of statements to run in your code and specifies a response that can specifies a response should an exception be thrown. It's possible to catch logical and runtime errors, but not syntax errors. Below is the syntax for the try-catch finally. So try, so you have your block of code in parentheses. I don't know why you have, not parentheses, but you have your bracket break. Okay, I've never seen that before. Code, and if exception occurs, and then code that is always executed regardless of an exception occurring. Okay, cool. So you can do your try-catch finally. Why is it written like that? Oof. I don't like that. I do not like that at all. But it should be written like this. I just don't know why it has maybe it's just something I'm not used to. So try, catch, finally. And with these, I mean, I'm usually used to like the finally being on the same line as the ending curly brace or the closing curly brace. Nitpicking, that's just me how I write it in terms of, or that's what I'm used to. That's how I learned from the interwebs. Okay. Try statements are statements to be executed. If an exception occurs during the execution of the try statement, the exception is placed in E. And this is arbitrary. So it could be E, it could be E-er, it could be E, it could be it could be error. So E, ERR, ERROR. You know, like it could be any one of those. It could be like another, it could be O, you know, it could be all types of stuff. But essentially you're just taking that and that's passed as the parameter. That error is represented, or the error string is represented by, or string or number is represented by this, error value is represented by this, this placeholder there. And the catch clause is executed otherwise. The catch clause is skipped, or otherwise the catch clause is skipped. The finally clause executes after the try statement is finished. It executes regardless of whether or not an exception was thrown or caught. Try statements can be used either with just the catch clause, just the finally clause, or both. Oh, okay. Okay. So try statements can be used either with just the catch or just the finally clause. Okay, I've never, because I don't really use finallys, and I want to start using them a little bit more in terms of like, you know, project that will always send something out, maybe like an API call that says, finally, no matter what, always send this out. What the fuck is that? Scissor 7. That's cool. I gotta look that up. What the hell is that? Check out this demo using, okay. Let's look at, I want to edit in CodePen. All right, so let's look at this. My function passenger equals 50, try, alert. The coach can sit X amount of passengers. Catch E error plus description. How many people can the coach sit? Let's see. The coach can sit 50 people. All right, so error description. So I don't know how I make this an error. Error dot description. Okay, let's go back here. Using the finally clause allows you to execute an additional command after the try catch. All right, cool. Find out. This bus can allow 50 people, but my Tesla still rocks. Okay, so in this case, you catch an alert if there's something here, if there's an error, but finally alert, but my Tesla still rocks. Okay, so it always runs that. As I stated earlier, I mean, making this an error, I mean, the way you can make this into an error is if, like, you know, you could do a check, like if greater than 50, do this, right? Or throw error, you can even do that. So, like, for instance, if I wanted to, I can do throw error, right? And then find out error undefined, because okay. I could just throw an object, and it could have description. All right, so I can throw an actual object, and then this should work. Yeah, error is error. Cool. So yeah, but my Tesla still rocks. So even you can see there, even with the error, that I still got an alert that said, "Hey, the Tesla still rocks." I mean, even it's like small on the screen, but you get what I'm saying. I'm glad I can give that example. I can actually write that example pretty easy. Some other examples have hard times with me. All right, the throw statement. The throw statement is used to generate a user-defined exceptions during runtime. When a throw statement is encountered, an exception of the current function will stop and control will be passed to the first catch clause in the call stack. Okay, so for instance, if something happens, you can actually just write a control statement, even if it's like, you know, you see that it's out of range or something like that, like I showed in the earlier example, I can just throw it and then that's it. All right. pass to the first catch clause in the call stack. If there is no catch clause, the program will terminate. Check out this example showing how to use throw statements. Okay, cool. I mean, actually, let's look at it. Let's walk through this. Find out. Error. Real Madrid will not qualify. Oof, that's personal. So if draw points equals 1, so win points, draw points. All right, cool. So you can see that it throws, and you can see here, like, you see how this throw, in this case, I wrote it without the parentheses. So throw is, I guess, is like a function, almost like your console log, and I could throw it. Oh, okay. So throw is like, in this case, it's like an alert. But if I did throw, let's see. Yeah, error. So it would throw error, and it would go down here and give me whatever E is. But in this case, of course, you didn't get to it. No, it's the same thing then. So yeah, whether you write it in this parentheses or not, it'll do the same thing. Interesting. At least that's how I see it and perceive it as is now. Blue Exorcist. Yeah, Blue Exorcist was a pretty good anime. Kind of ended abruptly though. Ooh, okay. Cool. So third statement, new one, on error method. The on error method was the first event handler to facilitate the handle errors in JavaScript. It is often used with the syntax window.onError. This enables the error event to be fired on the window object, whether an error occurs during runtime. Below is an example showing how to use the on error method. Okay, let's look at this. Okay. On error, window.onError, alert, an error occurred. So hold tight. Okay. So like I mean, with on error, that's like on click. You know, it's an event. It's like an add event listener essentially. So you're adding an event listener. If an alert or if an error happens, do this. So on click my function, and then oh wait, okay, hold tight. An error occurred. So on click my function, right? The reason why this is, I'm just trying to figure out why it's erroring out, and it makes sense because I don't have a function called my funct. My funct is not defined. Oh, okay, sorry. Here we go. Yeah, so the only reason it had that error is that it wasn't defined. But it's kind of crazy. Excuse me. That would happen like that. Sometimes it's like you work with so many different things and projects and code and stuff like that, where it's like, you know, some things have to be done in order and some things just do not. So, yeah. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't think I'll ever watch that anime. It looks so weird. Okay. Yeah, so that's interesting. So the reason why it's having errors is because the function doesn't exist. And it handles it like an event listener. Excuse me. Another utility mode for on error is using it to display an error message in case there's an in case there is any error when loading images on your site. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So you can do alert, on error alerts, error occurred when loading your photo. So I think I've done this before somewhere. Oh man, I think I've done this before. Like for instance, like if there was an error loading an image, then load what's it called image, a default image. I forgot where I did that, man. Sometimes I come up with these things where it says, "Oh yeah, we did that on the resume page. We did that on the resume page, right?" So let's look at that. Tree star. So we did that on the resume page for certifications. And what it does is console sources, JavaScript, resume. Fill in certifications error. Yeah, there we go. On error. This dot parent element dot inner HTML and then vendor. Right. So essentially, what it would do is like e dot vendor. Damn it. Essentially, if that image doesn't exist, then on error, it would go ahead, it would go back and it'll use the this statement. So it reference this element or itself. And it says that parent element. Oh man, what was it, man? Inner HTML. Oh, dot vendor. Okay, so e dot vendor. If I look at vendor up here. Yeah, vendor Cisco. So it would write in whatever the vendor name was. So, like for instance, this image doesn't load for whatever reason, it would just write in whatever the vendor name is, and it would replace the image itself. So essentially, it went out of the image element or went to the parent element, or you can even do parent node, and then say dot inner HTML, and then put in that string. As opposed to doing this. So, for instance, if I didn't have like an actual image loaded or anything like that, it would actually put the vendor in there for me. So I did that for images. So sometimes like I do this stuff, man. I do it in so many different places because it's like, yo, how do I do this? How do I get this done? It's just I have to remember it, man. Oh my god, that's like such a bad thing, bro. You kind of get over it, and as long as you have time, you can kind of figure it out. But it's just like it's kind of like Kanye West says, "I forgot better shit. I forgot better shit than you ever thought of." Like it'll be something like that. Like you forgot how to do these things. Like you see somebody write something and it's like, yo, bro, I forgot something that's even better than that in terms of like how it's actually written. All right, cool. Call stack properly. How much longer is this? Asynchronous code. Huh. I'll leave you guys to read the rest of this, but we'll handle the call stack property. And I'll read this later as well too, but I just want to drink some water, chill out for a little bit. The stack property is a feature in JavaScript in JavaScript error object. It offers a trace of which functions were called in what order from which line and file, and with that argument, and with what argument proceeding from the most recent calls to earlier ones, all the way to the original global scope call. And I talked about that yesterday in terms of lexical environments and the global execution scope. Check out this code block demonstrating the stack property. So function trace, try, throw new error. And sometimes that has to do with like how this is actually perceived and what it actually is. So when it says like new error, okay, so by doing throw new error, I guess this throws an error object, and that error object gets passed as E, and then that part of that error object, it has E.stack. First call, first arg. That's a string, so this is all one word. Or this is all one string. So function trace, and then function B is trace, function A, function B doesn't really say that it takes any parameters, so it doesn't break it down or anything like that. I wonder how you can like put in a parameter and it just doesn't take it. I don't think you can do that with functions. I've never seen it. Have I seen it? I don't think I've seen it. I would assume that it gets like messed up. 3, 4, new line, undefined. Yeah, that should be a problem. Assuming the above markup is saved as Stack Overflow.js, a Windows file system, it produces the alert message with the following: B trace. Okay. B at file stack line 11. Doesn't give me any line numbers there. So it's calling. So it has trace, and then it has B, and it has A, and then it actually has the file name. Yeah, line 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I don't know if it was counting some of those spaces, but it's off by 1. Or maybe it counts it at 0 in terms of line counting. A warning though, stack is a non-standard feature. It shouldn't be used on production sites facing the web, as it will not work for every user. Handling errors or asynchronous code. What is this section about? I mean, we understand this. Oh, okay, we're almost done with this. Let's finish this article out. That was a little bit longer. Handling errors. I'm just going by the sidebar here. Handling errors in asynchronous code. And this is kind of where I think I failed on this interview in terms of like just not doing it right or not saying the right thing. Usually errors in asynchronous code require a large amount of if-else checks and a careful inspection of parameter values. Promises allow asynchronous code to apply structured error handling. When doing promises, or when using promises, you can process errors by passing an error handler to them, or to the then method, or using a catch clause. Just like exceptions in regular code, an exception or rejection in asynchronous code will jump to the nearest error handler. Check out the code below. Okay, so you got like multiple catches or something. So variable log equals empty string. Function do work. Log plus equals W, so adds W to the string. Return promise.resolve. Function do error. Log plus equals E, so adds E to the log variable. Throw new error, oops. All right, so throw new error, oops, and then function error handler error log plus equals H. Weh. All right, cool. So that should be an issue. I mean, the thing is, if you run do error, it's gonna run that. So I'll stop error handler, and this error handler will take your error. Okay. So it's not, in this case, it's not overwriting things like log and stuff like that. It's actually just adding to the variable, the empty string. So at some point, whenever this promise is actually resolved, return promise.resolve. So there's a promise that needs to be resolved. So then this should be able to be thenable. That's what that means. Okay, so let's see what if what I said makes sense. So there's do work. All right, yeah. So this is thenable, right? And we're seeing that there. Okay. The functions were created to show how the process errors using the then method. We'll use them with the following code. Do work, then do work, then do error, then do work. This will be skipped. Then do work, error handler, dot then verify. Okay. Expect log dot to be this. Huh. I've never used expect. Let's research that. Oh, wow. Jasmine, 2 equal versus 2b. All right. I don't know if this is like some library or something like that, but let's look at this. This is just researching a little bit about the 2b keyword, or expect and then 2b 2 equal, or the subfunctions 2 equal 2b. In this lesson, we take a look into the difference between Jasmine, 2 equal, and 2b matchers. We consider a JavaScript file test.js containing two variables A and B, and to them we assign 2 equal numeric values. So var A equals 1, var B equals 1, or equal string, hello, or equal Boolean, true, for both of them. And in the specific file test.spec.js, inside the spec directory, we write the specs in Jasmine below. Excuse me. So Jasmine looks like simple, concise, comprehensive. Jasmine looks like some type of framework or library or superset of JavaScript. So you have like, and I guess Jasmine maybe it's for like testing purposes, but Jasmine has like a describe function, I guess, or functionality. Describe A function. It is equal to B function. Expect A dot to equal B. Oh, okay. And matches respectively. Let's go to Mozilla for this one. I want to see to expect. Maybe this is not JavaScript. Okay. Yeah, it's not JavaScript. So expect log, in this case, log this value here, log to be this, done. Oh, I haven't seen done in a while. What's expected is that the log variable will contain WWEH, right? Because we have all these different thenables that add to it, okay? When the code finishes executing, meaning the flow of the calls will reach do work, then do error, then error handler. There are two things we can observe from this. The first is that when the call to do error throws an exception, execution jumps to the next rejection handler, which is error handler, and skips over any potential success handlers. Okay, let's read that again. The first is that when the call to do error throws an exception, the execution jumps to the next rejection handler, which is error handler, and skips over any potential success handlers. This behavior is obvious once you think of promises as a tool to transform asynchronous code into a procedural flow of method calls. In synchronous code, an exception will jump over statements and up the stack to find a catch handler. Okay, right. And asynchronous code is an example. And the asynchronous code in this example is no different. So this will be skipped, right? Because we do when we do work. Oh, so once it does do error, it'll skip over it and then go to do work. Oh. Okay. I just got to accept that one. I don't know. I didn't know that. In terms of like just the functionality. And this is kind of the important stuff of doing this type of research, is looking into it a little bit deeper and how that language actually works, especially with error handling. Flow method. In synchronous code, example, okay. The second observation is that the verify function will execute as a success handler after the error. Just like normal execution can resume in potential code after catch clause, normal execution can resume with the promises after a handled error. The verify function executes because the error handler returns a successfully resolved promise. Okay, so yeah, right here, yeah, it says do work and then error handler. So it runs both of these functions here. Remember that the then method job to return a new promise, and unless the error handler explicitly rejects a new promise, the new promise resolves successfully. A promise object also provides a catch clause to handle errors. Check out this example, which is written using a catch clause. All right, because then do handler and verify. It should skip over this unless do work actually has an error. Yeah. And I would assume it does it all in line. Okay. The catch clause takes only a rejection handler method. This can be a difference in behavior between the following two code snippets. Yeah, do handle. This is okay. And in the first snippet, if the success handler throws an exception or rejects a promise, execution will not go into the error handler since the promise was already resolved at that level in the first code snippet. So if there's nothing going on here, if there's nothing that goes wrong here, then this doesn't get executed. Okay, learning. With the catch, you can always see an error that was not handled from the previous success handler. Finally, imagine you have a rejected promise in your code, but there's no error handler attached. You can simulate the scenario with the following line of code: promise.reject error. Some native environments and promise polyfills. Polyfills is just like getting your code to work with older browsers, such as like Internet Explorer and stuff like that, or older versions of a browser. Will warn you about unhandled promise rejections by displaying a message in the console of the developer tools. A unhandled promise rejection could spell doom for your application for your application, as it might be leaving a critical error unattended to. Okay, conclusion. When it comes to handling errors as a programmer, you either choose to ignore them and play the pretend game, or become a superhero and go back in time and save the world, or in this case, your code and probably your job. Personally, I would recommend becoming a superhero. Ignoring errors will only lead to more and more errors until the entire stack becomes impossible to work on, or even attempt a bug fix. Yeah, that's hard, man. When you've written so much code and it's just like you got to rewrite everything from like one point to the next. This is why it's like good to learn this stuff ahead of time. There's no harm in trying, no shame in admitting failure. Definitely. There will always be mistakes. It's what we do about them that matters in the end. All right, cool. That was a good article. This was very explanatory. Thanks, boss. Great post. Feedback. Okay, thanks. Yeah, this is really good. Chris Nwamba. All right, cool, man. Follow at Code Beast. All right. Hey, friend, I got some exciting news. August 16th. Okay. AWS Amplify team at Amazon to help make experience fantastic for you all. Oh, wow. Okay, so he works at Amazon and everything. Jack of a few trades, JavaScript teacher, now AWS Amplify, ex-Microsoft. Oh, wow. Okay, so this guy does some stuff, man. AWS Amplify, the official Twitter account for front-end web and mobile development on Amazon Web Services. Cool, bro. Oh, okay. This happened back in 2013. All right, so this guy want to log in first. Hell no, I don't want to log in. I don't got no Instagram. Jesus Christ! If I don't got no Twitter. Definitely not no Instagram. All right, so yeah, that was pretty cool. So yeah, go ahead and follow this guy on Twitter. It seems like he has some good information here. But yeah, that was a great article by Christian Nwamba. It looks great also. But yeah, we still got to do more investigation on handling errors and doing all these different things to ensure that our program always runs, or any issues that are caught are handled for the most part. There's a lot of work that I have to do in this in terms of getting better. And hope you guys can always join One Punch Man. You guys can always join me on that journey. Appreciate you as always. And, always do a little bit more, study more, research more, find out more. I'll be doing some more of these research streams so you can learn as I learn, and then I can explain it a little bit as best as possible. And then we could read on the article and see where if I'm wrong or not, So that's a good thing in terms of like, hey, just being upfront and then showing, the progression that we're all going through and that we all need to do. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard, doing this stuff by yourself and learning by yourself. I don't really like classic schools. I like to be like, all right, cool. I want to learn something, go learn it and then get out. I think that's more efficient. But there's drawbacks to that. There's a lot of things that when you go through the process of learning something, in what is that? When you go through the process of learning something in a structured manner, in a procedural manner, in a well thought out syllabus-like manner, then they go through all the different steps. You can ask questions. But when you just learn by yourself, it's all over the place. And there's a lot of holes, vulnerabilities, and things that you just don't see until you're presented with them. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that. So there's good and bad with that. But, a part of this whole learning thing is that you can always go back. You can always go back and you can always go back and, try. You can always go back and attempt to get more information. You can always go back to do what's necessary in terms of improving yourself and improving improving what you can expect. Improving your skills and improving upon yourself. All right, I'll leave it at that because I'm running out of words. So as always, guys, if you're not taking what I say with a grain of salt, then you're low on sodium. You need to go and look at these things. You need to read these things. You need to understand these concepts. You need to understand a little bit more about the call stack, memory heaps, lexical environments. You need to understand about error handling, the best ways to handle errors, and what to expect in error handling, as we saw in the last bit of code. These are all things that are, I think, fundamental that I've just never had. I've never been impressed with. Like you write your code to always just work, and if it doesn't work, you fix it. But what if it does work now, but won't work here in a little bit? As soon as somebody else puts in something that's not expected. What if you don't check for certain types of input? What if you don't stop certain types of input? You don't sanitize input, things like that. We sanitize input for backend stuff, but sometimes you got to sanitize input for your own logic, making sure that certain things are always, accounted for as best as possible. Alrighty, guys. Thanks as always for listening, and I really appreciate those that have made it to this point. As always, peace. Have a nice one.